it's finding joy in the chaos. And our world is definitely chaotic. Our lives can be chaotic, more often than I would like to admit or like to experience, but they are. So, yeah, so welcome. Hi, Craig. I can see you there. He is out of town for the week. So, yeah, so he's tuning in from, where's he at? I forget now. That's terrible. Where are you at, hon?
DC or
Oh, yes.
something?
Angela knows. Oh, I'm telling you. I was having a hard time getting on the live. So let's start out with a scripture that I want to give you. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So the key word here, I would say, is renewing our mind. How do we do that? Um, and how do we do that? What's one way you can renew your mind?
Well, we're laughing because I'm in the middle of chaos right now in my life, and I have a really bad attitude right now. And I just told Barb today, I'm like, of all things, we are talking about mindset and finding joy in the middle of chaos. And I feel really rotten right now. And so we were talking about what is this going to look like, because most people feel like they have to have it all together before they go on and do a live. You feel like you got to have some kind of equity to be able to speak into this specific situation. And I was telling Barb just now, I said, I think this is going to be very vulnerable and honest while I'm in the middle of my own chaos. And how about we just process just like we do as friends, like how we normally do when we call each other with a cup of coffee in our hand on the phone, or we FaceTime each other and we process through life's happenings. And somehow God always teaches us in real time. So somehow I believe this will minister to some people that are listening, that I'm here to tell you that right now I'm looking for joy in the middle of chaos. And so to answer your question, Barb, something that I am doing right now is I am trying to remind myself of all the times that God has been good for me, of all the times that he has come through for me when I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And when I felt like I really needed him to encourage me, he came through for me. And so I'm reminding myself of all of those times, because right now I'm not seeing it. So I'm just going to look back and reflect on the moments that I know he was really good to me.
So what do you think's going through? I mean, what is getting you stuck? Because I know that you talk, I talked to you one day and you're like, I'm doing better. Do you think, what do you think is happening that you're kind of stuck in this situation right now? Is it the pain, the physical pain that you're feeling? Some of it?
Yeah. I mean, if people haven't tuned in before tonight, I was in a bad car accident a couple weeks ago, and somebody was killed in that accident. So, I've had a lot of processing, but the airbag and the seatbelt and stuff really got me. I have bruised ribs, bruised sternum. I can feel my cartilage moving. I mean, it's extremely painful. And I'm coming up now on 3 weeks of, I had one day where I felt like I was about 60% better, and all of a sudden I sneezed, and I don't know, I bent over to do something and I must have moved wrong or something. So now I have it all fired up again, and I kind of just want my life to be back to normal. And I realized something today. we have our own church services, you know, and we were doing worship, and the last song we sang, we really could feel the presence of the Lord, you know, during that worship song. And and I felt, I really could feel the presence more than what I have felt for the last 2.5 weeks. And then we took communion, and I realized while I was taking communion, I realized a very big truth that I had not processed through yet. And that is that I really think I'm angry at God right now for what happened to me. I think I'm angry at him. I'm happy that he saved my life, but I have spent the last 2.5 weeks trying to figure out why this was allowed to happen.
Right. I think that's where I've had a lot of situations in my life like that. That I'm like, I can't believe I'm here, Lord. How could you let this be? And then I remember who he is, and I trust him again. It's that his ways are so much higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And it's just, we cannot understand how he puts it all together. I mean, just the weekend alone, not to minimize what you're going through, but even in the weekend, I could see things that happened that would not have happened if this wouldn't have happened. And I think there's so many things in our life that we'll probably never understand here. I certainly won't, I don't think. But we do have to trust somehow. And I know with mindset and stuff, going back to mindset, even in a situation like this, whether it's an emotional thing like a relationship or physical pain, horrible things happen to people. They're paralyzed, all these things, and we don't understand why, and I don't take it lightly because it's super painful. I've been through things like that, but I think it's a constant trying to readjust the reality that we're looking at. You know what I mean?
Well, it used to be that if I was upset with the Lord, or I didn't understand something and I was angry at him or whatever, because I came from that kind of that old religious mindset, that I would think that, that he would be disappointed in me, or he would be mad at me if I had told him that I was upset. But I just remember different times in my life where he would say, I honestly, I was just waiting for you to be honest. Yeah. And then always comes back with, now how can we fix this? And so it's like, it's so opposite of what we think. We think that if we're mad at God about something, that he's going to push us away and turn his back. But the truth is he actually comes closer and says, thank you for being honest with me. How can we fix this? So this was something that I just came to terms with, like just literally right before, our live. And so God has this amazing ability with me that when I come to terms with the lie that I believed, or the emotion I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it, or, you can tell when you're in a funk, right, when you can put your finger on it and go, oh my gosh, that's what it is. Yeah. Then it's like when you give that to him and you say, I know that this is what it is. Then it's like he'll begin to do a deep work. So I have no question that tonight probably I'll go to bed and he'll begin this deep work in me, and I'll probably wake up with some words. I'll probably wake up in the morning with an epiphany of something that he shared with me in the night, and I want to cry because he's done this to me so many times. Yeah. And it's like almost like when we do our part and we come to terms with what it is that we are really battling with in the spirit realm or with our emotions, or whatever, then he comes alongside and he kind of does the rest.
Right. Right. Well, and that's what I guess I was trying to get to that a little bit about, um, our mindsets and the renewing of our mind and the transformation of our mind. It is when things are going wrong, when we're feeling upset or mad at him or angry or fearful or whatever it is, when we can identify that, then we can see, okay, so this is the lie that, he doesn't care, he doesn't really protect me, because that's not who he is, right? So then we have to realign our thoughts to what is the truth about him, always looking back. And it's not easy. It is not easy when it's emotional, when it's a relationship, when it's physical pain, but that is the way we turn that dial. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We get our eyes on him, and then things start to make sense. But that doesn't mean it doesn't go back and forth. I know I've had a situation in my life where, I've been really upset. Like, I thought I could trust you. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe I didn't hear you. Thought I could trust you. Maybe, you know what I mean? I'm going back and forth and double-minded, right? And then I would apologize and say, God, I know you're in control. I know this is what you said to me to do. And then, I revert back. And it's just this constant thing, but I'm just learning to trust him, learning to turn my eyes back to him, learning to look at what is the truth in scripture, right? That's the only way you get through these things. And fear is a big thing because the enemy uses it constantly for everything. And, I was asking you, because you were saying things were moving in your chest and you didn't know what they were. And I thought, well, gosh, that would be scary. And I said, do you think some of that is fear? Like, what is really happening in there? And you're like, yes. And then we prayed about, that God would just protect you and heal you. And he knows what's going on. And regardless of what is happening, he's got you. We just, again, it's putting the dial back to where it needs to be, in our minds and in our mindsets, and filling ourselves with, I guess, just being honest with him, first of all, asking him questions like, God, what is this? What do you want me to learn from this? That helps me so much when crummy things happen.
I was at a place that I was so escalated, I guess, that because the accident made me really anxious, and just me driving, I can feel that. And I have been so escalated that when it would come time for me to sit down and spend time with God and talk to him, I was finding myself shutting down where I couldn't even ask questions.
Wow.
And that's kind of where I've been for the last 2.5 weeks. And today something came to my mind, because I love how God uses everyday things to kind of bring things in, in a revelatory way with me. But I was reminded of, remember when we used to get the Sunday paper, and us kids always grab the comic section, it was really fun. And they always had frames,
Yeah.
Every story you could see a whole story, and it might only be 8 frames, but you could figure it out, And it's like one frame, it looks like maybe they're moving along and they're real happy, and then all of a sudden you see a rain cloud, and you can tell by the frame that a storm has hit and they're in devastation or whatever. And the very next frame, the sun comes out and things change. And I was thinking about that today, and I was like, that is really how God works. He's a suddenly kind of God.
Yeah.
Where when we begin to understand and realize what is stripping us of our joy, what is taking the joy out of us in the middle of our chaos, why are we unable to press in, that it can be as simple as jumping from one frame to the next in a comic strip, where once you realize you can move on to the next thing, and it can change very suddenly. And I think that I've built enough of a relationship with the Lord that, like for those of you watching, Barb and I was sharing today about, she's like, well, I saw your stuff on Instagram. It looked like you had a great weekend. We had my grandson's second birthday party yesterday. Today we were celebrating my daughter who had finished some really hard accounting courses. And we went out for hibachi. And I said, yeah, I really did have a good time. But I'm realizing that happiness is very situational. Like you can feel happy in the moment when you're with your family or you're at events or whatever, and then you come out from that environment and you're kind of like, like that's the reality again, feeling the pain, whatever. Right. But joy, it's weird because it's like, even though I'm in this space where I'm trying to fight through what I can't see, and I'm trying to find happiness or joy in this chaos, it's like, even though I know I'm struggling in the moment, I know that He has imparted great joy in me that is still there. I have access to it if I dig deep enough.
Yeah.
No, it's still there.
Yeah. And you said something really interesting to me. And sometimes when He uses a situation that can literally, that's devastating, but can literally shift us on the inside to see life in a new way. You said it was so interesting. I was just watching everyone today, like I had never watched them before. And I said, what do you mean? And you were like, I don't know. I was just taking notice of all the small things and observing them, and really, and it gave you joy from doing that, right? And I think those are, when you have a near death experience in your situation, I think there's something deep within us that shifts for good, right? I had a friend that was born with a lung disease, and she wasn't supposed to live past, she wasn't supposed to live long at all. They found it when I think she was 9 or something like that. Well, she ended up living until she was, I think, 57. And she was one of the most joyful people. It lived life better than I've ever seen anybody live life, because everything to her was just the icing on the top, because she'd never expected she'd be able to have children. Then she had children, and then she said, Lord, if I could just see them turn, go to their first day of school. And then it was, if I could just see this, and if I could just see that, that would be wonderful. And I guess what I'm saying is, even when these horrible things happen, there's things inside of us that we can only learn from a situation like that. And God can go deep and say, just look around. Every single thing, every moment is a gift. And you become more aware of how fragile life is. When you understand how fragile life is, everything looks different, right? Our mindset changes. So that alone might be a major gift that you have been given.
I wonder if part of the grieving, that you go through when you're in chaos, I wonder if part of that is the dying of self, and you're grieving the part of yourself that is moving away, that you've depended on, that you've relied on, when things all of a sudden aren't working anymore in your life, and your flesh is trying to hang on for dear life for what you've always known. There's got to be a grieving in that you're grieving that you're letting go of that now, and it's been a part of you forever. And and I heard someone say one time that the reason that you grieve is because when you're dying in the flesh like that is because your body, your flesh has it has nothing in the game. It's not going with you to eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Your spirit's going with you to eternity, but your flesh, it fights tooth and nail because it's not going with you to eternity. So it doesn't have, as much to risk.
Interesting.
So I don't know. It's like, that's one thing I love about our friendship is, and really for anybody watching, if you've got friends that give you wise counsel and you're in the middle of a funk and you're like, I just need to process.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about when you're processing with them and you're really actually sharing what's in your heart, that they give you a safe place to land. And suddenly you begin to give yourself the answers that you've been wanting. Because when you said that today, that I mentioned that I was really paying attention to the little things with each of my family and stuff. I wonder if there's a part of me that's grieved that it took this near-death experience for me to really begin to realize that, I have not valued the things in front of me the way that I should. I'm always busy, or I feel like I'm, present, but are we really? Sometimes we're not,
Yeah, we don't know until we know, you know what I mean? And some of these experiences, like we talk about a lot, like suffering, nobody wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to go through it. Nobody's signing up, right? But we're all experiencing it. And it's in the suffering where we learn these deep, deep lessons. And it never feels good. It's always painful. It's always stinky. But if it weren't for those times, we wouldn't have some of the depth that we need to face the next problem, right? So I'm not sure why you had to experience this, Ange. And and again, as being a friend, when somebody comes to you and says, I think I'm mad at God, it's like you don't need to have an answer for them. You just need to say, tell me how you feel and why, and listen to some, because when she said that, I'm like, well, explain that to me. And then the more people talk and the more you ask questions and you really listen and you give them a safe place to process, that's when God begins to give us some aha moments. But back to mindset. This is all mindset, right? Everything, we can have a really good mindset. And if somebody we love dies, or we're in a near death experience, or a relationship like bombs, then we have to rely on everything that we've been feeding our mind and setting our mind on, and it's challenged once again, right? In that dial, I always see our mindset as a dial. It's like, is it dialed into the correct thing? It can be off just a degree, and eventually you're going to be going the wrong direction. And mindset is so important because it keeps us where we need to be. It doesn't mean that we don't get angry sometimes. It doesn't mean that we're not fearful sometimes. It just means we know that this is the way the dial should be. If it's turned this way, what's happening? What am I believing, right? Am I believing,
well,
right?
It's interesting that you keep bringing up the dial, because every time I think about dial, I think about like when you're tuning into a radio station, and sometimes you can hit a station that you don't have the right frequencies, and so you're only hearing bits and pieces, or it's very staticky and things are not clear. And that is exactly how it is for us. We can be very staticky and unclear if we are not tuned into the right frequency. And I was thinking about something today. I've been using this frankincense oil, on my chest to try to get rid of some of the bruising and stuff. And I was thinking about the scripture that talks about how I will give you oil, the oil of joy for your mourning.
Mm-hmm.
And oil is oily, you know, like I find it in the morning on my pillowcase. I can see it on my sheets, like, you know. And I went to massage therapy school. We had certain lotions we couldn't use because the oils would cause staining in our sheets. Like, oil is oily. It's not just something that you just wash off, you know. And so it's like, even if I don't feel joy in the moment, I know that there are many times in my life that God has restored me, and he's given me oil, the oil of joy for my mourning. And that doesn't go away. It's just like the oil that I put on me. In the morning, I still smell it. I still see it. I can still see where it's been.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that
Mm-hmm.
oil is embedded into us. That oil of joy is embedded into us. And it's the presence of the Lord. That's what it is.
It's true.
Not a natural joy. It's like totally supernatural. And I'm just, you know, I'm in the middle of searching. I'm in a new place searching. But I was telling somebody at church this morning, but I trust him, that when I'm ready to tap into that again, that it's still there. I'm stained. I'm forever stained by his love, you know?
Yep. Yep. It's so true. Yeah. I've I've had like a very, I guess I could call it a really dry season, but when I keep my eyes focused in gratitude and thankfulness, the most mundane days with the most, I was telling my husband I was outside gardening, I think it was yesterday, and it didn't matter which way I turned. Like, my shoulders hurt, my hip hurt, my knees hurt. But I just spent the day, like, it was kind of silly, but I just spent the day thanking God for every little thing. Oh my gosh, it was so, and I just stayed in that process. And rather than focus on my body, I was just so thankful that I could still move, that this body was still moving, it was still going, even though there was pain here and there. I don't know how to explain it other than it just depends what you focus on. You can have two people in the same exact circumstance. And if one is looking and being thankful for every little thing they can possibly pull out, even when it's silly stuff, like, I'm so glad that I can still, like, bend over. Even though it hurts, I can bend over. And the other person's like, oh my gosh, my hips are killing me. I got to go sit down. I mean, one's going to have a completely different reality, a completely different experience. So, and yes, we have these times when it's very difficult. We just have to keep refocusing, keep refocusing. It's not an automatic thing. But the more you spend time with the Lord, transforming your mind in his scripture and focusing on that, your reality just becomes different. And I was telling my husband today, we really have to get it right now, because the world looks chaotic, but we are still free. We are still able to do things and move about, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're not joyful right now, if what breaks loose and times that really get crazy, we are certainly not going to be able to pull out joy then, right?
Yeah.
So
these are all those little dress rehearsals we talk about.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
learn how to do it so that when times get tough, we were talking about that this morning, is that I was saying, I'm finding that I'm in this season of, I can't do anything right now because my body, my chest, you don't realize you use all the muscles here in your core. and, from this car accident. And so I'm literally having to sit. I'm having to recline, and it's driving me crazy because I want to go outside and I want to do things and I want to, get my plants in order and all that. Well, that's just where I'm at right now. But God's not removing it. He keeps telling me he's going to walk me through it.
Right.
Not removing it. He's just going to walk me through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling the ladies at church this morning, I said, I want to do this right. Like, I don't want to lose all of the, what I'm supposed to learn in this season. I don't want to lose what I'm supposed to learn in this season. Like, there's something he wants to teach me. There's a part of him he wants to unveil to me. There's a nature of his that he wants to show me. There's something, a greater level of whatever that he wants me to grab hold of. And I don't want to like waste away in this season and then get at the end of it and go, I have no idea what that was about. No, I want to come through it.
Right.
And I want to look back over it and go, if it wasn't for that,
Yeah.
I would this. And if it wasn't for that time that I sat on the couch, I wouldn't be here. And I have felt so shut down. And yet in my heart of hearts, I am sitting here crying out inside going, God, what do you want to teach me as I'm walking through this so
Right.
that I can gain greater clarity of who you are and what it is that you want me to do?
Right. It's so good. And I guarantee you, Ange, with a heart like that, I know that God is going to do that for you. And it just made me think, gosh, it was probably 15 years ago. I had fibromyalgia, and I laid in a recliner I spent probably 8 months in a recliner. And I remember being at worship services at church, and I was in so much pain. Like, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't sit down. If I sat down, it hurt. If I stood up, and I would just remember saying, trying to praise God. And I was like, God, I don't understand why you're not taking this from me. I don't understand. And I would look at people my age that were moving about like you should be moving. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again. And I don't know how to walk through life in this type of pain. Long story short, that actually was probably at least 15 years ago, maybe more. It still has been the biggest gift to me, because I'm thinking the other day, why does it not upset me that all these things aren't working on me? And I'm thinking, because it does not even compare to the pain that I had, because I can move. I can still move. I can bend. It might hurt a little bit, but it'll go away in a few days, a couple weeks, a couple months, whatever. But the other was so traumatic, and God did not take it away from me, but it has made me the most appreciative person of my health and my body, and to take care of it. So like I said, in the suffering, we can gain things that will, like you said, you were watching your children. You were just being quiet. And maybe it was even the pain and the things you were experiencing that made you just be still for a moment. Because you and I are both very much alike, as far as we're like, ah! You know what I mean? You're in a crowd, you're like, oh, and maybe it's giving you time to just reflect too. You know what I mean?
One of our daughters, my stepdaughter, was sitting next to me during dinner, and she could tell that I was in so much pain during dinner. And she reached over and she just pulled me in to her, and she just held me tenderly, and she just kept telling me how much she loves me. Sorry she is that I'm going through this. And she just kept saying, I have been praying for you. I have been praying for you, and I love you. And I hate seeing you go through this, and I just love you. And it brought out this tenderness. I saw such a tenderness in her that I needed.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Like sometimes I think that when we go through hard times, you know, I wonder sometimes if you know, if we're a person that we're so busy giving out to everybody else all the time. I wonder if sometimes, maybe God allows us to, sit down in a chair for a season that we can't do anything, so that we can allow others to just finally love on us. And if we're used to performing and used to being the one to have to try to, make sure everything's in order and aligned, whatever, maybe the hard times are for us to just go, you know what? I'm waving my white flag. I'm crying uncle. I have no idea what to do anymore. And when those who love you see that you're just in a place of just, I surrender, and then they love, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's part of the gift, is that it finally breaks you down enough where you allow others in.
Yeah.
To love you into wholeness.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, we can get caught in the whole performance and feeling like that's where our value lies, and and it's not.
I was looking at Isaiah 26:3 today. It says, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. And I was like, Lord, I might be in a crazy space right now, but there is one thing I can say, and that is that I know that you are my perfect peace. Like, he is the person of peace.
Yeah.
And when my mind is stayed on you, even when I don't understand what's going on around me, I know, at the end of the day, I know I can trust him.
Boy, that's the truth. Yeah. It's a looking back and it's a remembering of all the times. And you're just in new territory right now, Ange.
Yeah.
A place you've never been before. And at any moment, any one of us can be in a new territory and not sure what to do. That's why we need him so desperately. And we need to know who he is and understand his goodness and his faithfulness and his ability to bring us through it, and that he's not a cruel God. He can use anything, and and change those around us. He changes us. He's amazing. I don't know how he does it, but the things that you think have nothing good in them, he can still use. So yeah. And what is it? I love this one. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. When you do this, it gives you, it purifies your mind. When you begin, we have to be so careful what we place in our minds, because it's times like now, Ange, that that mind needs to be set up and as healthy as it can be to handle these circumstances. That's why mindset is important too. It's just like, this, you're in a, what would you say? Like a marathon. This is grueling, or a triathlon is what you're experiencing in your emotional or spiritual being right now. So if we need to be ready at any time to compete in a triathlon, we better be filling our spiritual mind full of really good food. If we're eating McDonald's and Twinkies, I think I did something. if we're eating McDonald's and Twinkies and all this stuff, we are not going to be prepared. If we're thinking on negative things, if we're filling our minds with things other than what God says, when things like this come, it's going to take us out. We will not be able to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that this part, a triathlon isn't grueling. It just means you've got to be pretty fit in your mindset to handle this. And you're doing a good job. But in a triathlon, you're going to get blisters. You're going to want to give up. You're going to get tired. You know what I mean? It's not uncommon, but this is the real deal. So it takes so much that we need it. That's why when I was telling my husband, things are chaotic, but they're not that bad right now. So we need to be filling our mind. We need to be gearing up. We need to be joyful, thankful, all the things that build into us what he says. If there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think on these things. He is like saying, this is what you have to do. This thing's got to be in shape, our head, our minds, the way we see him. We have to know who he is. For most days, if you're not really competing in anything, you're like, yeah, I can watch all this stuff. I can do all this stuff, go about my day and forget about God. But when this happens, you got to be in shape already, right? Or it's going to take you out. You're going to be sitting on the sidelines telling them to come pick you up.
And this is all a spiritual workout. It really is. And, Galatians 5:1, I was reading that today and I was like, I felt a little convicted by that one because it says, for freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. And I was thinking about how many times do I get into a mindset where I find myself reverting back to like a default setting that I used to go to. For one thing, I will tell you this. I'm an eater. I'm a stress eater. Mm-hmm. I'm a bored eater. When I'm bored, I eat. I have probably put on 10 pounds over the last 2 weeks. And that's me submitting again to a yoke of slavery. Mm-hmm. And so it's standing firm. I have to stand firm. And, if I can say anything that is worthwhile, I guess I have just so realized how I fail so much.
Me too.
And
I hate it.
and I don't know how I get through a lot of the things that I get through and how I come out any better other than to just go, God does it. He's God and I'm not. And I don't know how he does it. I just know that he knows who we are and he knows our heart's desire. And he knows when we want more of him. And he knows when we really want to get out of slavery. And he knows when we have a deep, deep longing in us to break through and to overcome. And I really believe that he ministers to us deeply in the night hours. I really do, because there's been so many times that I've went to bed and I have been frustrated and I have been annoyed and just wanting to be at a different place than what I am. And in the morning, I'll have something fresh pouring in my spirit that will be an answer to something that I was feeling when I was going to bed the night before. And I don't know how he does it, but he's God. Yeah. And, sometimes our mindsets, it's not that easy. Sometimes it's not that easy to just say, okay, I'm going to stop thinking this way and I am just going to be this way from now on. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the biggest way that I have gotten my attitude shifted and my mind transformed is not going, I'm just going to do it right. And I'm just going to one step. And it's not, it is literally me going, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And I'm done fighting, and I'm done. I am just done. That is how I get my biggest breakthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said about being stained by his oil. When we when we when we cry out to him, when we surrender, when we acknowledge who he is, when we thank him for the smallest of things, it begins to shift us. There's this oil that is always on us. You know what I mean? When I was talking to you today, I'm like, I just love him. And I'm like, I don't know why I said that. I've just been feeling that. Because he knows how many times I've messed up. He knows how many times I've doubted him. Like, are you sure you want me to do this? Are you sure? And then I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. I know you told me that. I mean, but yet he's patient, and then I know that he loves me, and he is love. He doesn't just love me. Like, we love each other because, but he is love. That's where love comes from. I mean,
the essence. He's the essence of.
I mean, I don't know why the other day I just thought of this, and I'm like, that's who he is. He is love. That's how we feel all these wonderful little flickers of love in our lives that we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And those are just like little flickers of, but that's who he is. So of course he loves us. And if he loves us, we can trust him.
Yeah.
Even when nothing makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not easy.
But, I got another scripture.
Yeah.
Second Corinthians 10:5 says, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And I think sometimes the arguments that we need to destroy are the arguments in us.
Mm-hmm.
That,
yeah.
That it's like, we think, we are taught from early on to be such big performers that it's all on us to do everything. And that is an argument that we have to destroy, because it is really about, that is being lofty. That's being lofty. We were never meant to run this race alone. We were never meant to do it by ourselves. That's lofty.
Right.
And so we have to give that to him, and we have to take every thought captive. It's like every time we feel like, we got to do more, or we got to say more, or we got to be more. It's like, I think that's the biggest thing that we have to give to him in obedience, because we cannot do without being in him first. And we talk about that a lot, but yeah. I mean, honestly, just by us processing tonight, I already feel better. I don't know how that works, other than I know David was one that he had to encourage himself in the Lord all the time. And sometimes our encouragement comes from a friend, Mm-hmm. I decided, you know what, I'm going to be like Paul, and I'm going to boast in my weaknesses. And I'm going to admit to all of you that right now my mindset stinks. And
we've all been there, and I'm there more often than I'd like. But I think it's true. I mean, I think your mindset is in shape, Ange. It's just that you're in a really rough race right now, and it's okay. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to wonder if you can finish this race. He's just, it's a crushing and oppressing, and it's in that where you gain something that you couldn't gain otherwise. Right?
Yeah. And that's one thing that we've learned, haven't we, that when he does the crushing and pressing and he makes that new wine, it's like our old wineskin can't contain it. When you think about the leather that they used to use for their wine bags, it get brittle and they'd have to rub it with oil. And there's times that it would be so brittle that when they would try to pour that wine in, that it would bust. And, you know, he's re-oiling. That's what I feel right now. It's like he's oiling this wine skin and he's making it pliable so that it can hold more. And it hurts.
It does. It does. Girl, it does. I'm proud of you, though. I am so proud of you. You were quite the warrior on that weekend, and that was literally a phenomenon for you, for you to get up. It was like nothing happened, and then you could see your body going, whoop, and then you come back up. Whoop. It's like,
yeah, I still look back because I think about how I have felt over the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, how did I make it through that retreat weekend after coming out of a car crash when I have spent the last 2 weeks on the couch? I'm like, that was so supernatural.
it was. And it was 3 days. It wasn't like you showed up that night and spoke and left. I mean, I really watched God. I watched it. It was amazing. And so we know that he is in control. And I'm not just saying that. I look forward to see what happens from this. And like I said, we don't always see it all. Like I surely didn't see it when I had fibromyalgia that long. Not for a very long time did I realize how grateful it had made me for life, for movement, simple movement, any movement without shearing pain. You know what I mean? But it just made my life that much more beautiful, and I was so much more thankful. I'm still thankful after all these years. And I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but he's amazing.
I don't either. That's why I know that joy, all the times that he's replaced my mourning with joy, I know that's still in there. You know, I still feel that bubbling in there. You know, it's like that well, you know, like that deep well that when it's there, and you know, it's got the springs coming into it. It's always fresh, always flowing. And at any time in your life, no matter how dry you are, you can always, you know, re-tap back into that well. You know, it's still there. And but yeah, we have seasons. We have seasons. And we talk about this all the time, but Ecclesiastes 3 talks about the seasons. You have seasons for joy and you have seasons for mourning. And I'm in one of those seasons where I'm dying a little.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's just like our own children. I mean, when they're hurting and they're in pain, you just want to scoop them up and curl, you know, just hold them and allow them to cry, allow them to feel whatever it is they need to feel. And you just want to make it better for them. And I know God feels that way for you. He's not disappointed that you're sad or frustrated or anything. He's just like, oh, my Ange, it's going to be okay. I promise. You know, and he's pushing your hair back. It's just so sweet. I can just see it. And you're going to be okay. He knows you're going to be okay. He's saying, I got it. I got it. Just rest. And you know what? It's okay to be frustrated and to lay and feel sorry for yourself. Because that's what I do when I'm not feeling good. I'm like, ooh. But
I just don't want to camp there for real long.
Yeah, there's a big difference of feeling it and then, you know, challenging it and asking questions like, why do I feel like this? That's when God can move. It's when you become angry and you just want to stay there and you don't want to even ask God any questions, because that's when you get stuck. Yeah. That's when the mindset's in the wrong place. So,
okay. Absolutely. Well,
I think that wraps it up for tonight, huh?
Yeah.
Hopefully it made sense to someone out there. I don't know. All I can say is we don't have all the answers at all, but he does. and we're constantly going to him, trying to make sense of it. And just, it's more than anything, it's about surrender.
Well,
It's about realizing,
but thanks for letting me process,
oh
Barb.
my gosh, yes, absolutely. We'll talk more. But yeah, it's just an engine light when we feel angry, frustrated, when we, that dumb thing when I put my finger up, it does that. Anyway, yeah, it's an indicator from the Lord that we just need to quiet ourselves before him and say, you know, where's this coming from? What do you want to be to me right now? What are you doing? And I'm okay if I don't understand, because I do trust you, because you're good. But doesn't mean it's not going to be hard sometimes.
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly right.
So yeah. So what are we talking about next week? Do we know?
I don't know, but we really do need to get better at figuring that out when we're closing out, because then we're always, I don't know. Don't know. So stay tuned.
Well, we're doing this in real time. So, and gosh, I'm kind of afraid to see what next week is. Oh, anyway, okay. We'll see you next Sunday, and we'll put some teasers out this week once we've